Did you know that you can stream the best of HBO shows and more with the new Astro? Better than before, no rain interruptions, no repeats. Just stream anytime and on demand via the Astro Ultrabox. It starts from only RM59.90 a month, and you can find out more information at astro.com.my. This is the Goggler Podcast. Bahir and Uma with you. Reacher is back for its second season on Prime Video, continuing their trend of having characters with the initials JR.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Ryan, Jack Reacher, James Reese. This one is as good as the first season. I mean, I've only seen the first 3 episodes because that's what's out. The first season was dropped all at once, but I think given how successful it was, Prime Video went, hey, you know what? Let's do the staggered release. So they're doing 3 episodes and then 2 episodes a week until it ends. And it's already been renewed for season 3. I was trying to think of how to describe Reacher for people who don't know what it is. And the only way I can think of is this is the show your dad will really like.
Like, my dad really likes the show, but also I think it feels like you're underplaying Reacher.
Oh, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that it has a real throwback quality to it. And listen, I didn't hate the Tom Cruise versions. I thought the Tom Cruise movies were pretty decent. Sure, he didn't look like Jack Reacher as described by Lee Child in the books, because Reacher is a monster of a man and Tom Cruise is kind of little.
Yeah.
But the spirit of Reacher was captured in those movies as well. Alan Ritchson is a beast. And I didn't think it was possible, but he looks even bigger in season 2.
Yeah.
They seem to be adapting each season based on a different book. So the first season was based on the very first book, Killing Floor, but the second season is based on a later book called Bad Luck and Trouble.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, but anyway, go on.
And I think it's smart because the first season kind of highlighted the fact that Jack Reacher was this loner. So for those of you who don't know, he used to be in the military and then decided to take on this nomadic lifestyle. He's a bit of a drifter. He has no phone, he has no home, he just wanders the streets of America, fighting crime, kind of like David Banner in the Incredible Hulk TV series.
Yes.
And so this one I thought was smart because they picked a book that kind of leans into his past in the military and how he worked in a team. Yet again, the series just moves from the very first shot. We see someone get thrown out of a helicopter, lands on the ground 3,000 feet below dead, and then next thing you know, Reacher is roped in to try and solve this massive conspiracy involving a group that seems intent on wiping out his former crew.
For me, my surprise is that this has come in season 2. I would have liked maybe a little more of season 1 Reacher. You know what I mean? Like the
loner Reacher?
The loner Reacher a little bit more. And I think it's not a bad decision. I think it's a great decision, especially because you've already set that up in season 1. If you're going to do this in season 2, I assume there might be maybe even a bigger conspiracy in season 3, because you can't come back from this, right? You can't go back to a simple just Reacher in a small town trying to stop a crime.
I'd be interested to see how they play this show because none of the characters from season 1 are back. Neely had a bit of an extended cameo in season 1. So she's the only one who's back for season 2 in a main character role. But if you go by the books, it's almost always new characters with every book because obviously he's just going from town to town, city to city.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting if this is that kind of an anthology series or whether the TV showrunners will fall prey to the idea of trying to link everything together, which I think would be a mistake. I think Reacher works best as these standalone stories and standalone seasons.
It makes it more interesting because it's less formulaic, I think. And I think to make a season 2 essentially a second part of season 1 feels like, because they've established it already. They've done that song already, right? So now they're going to move on to a different tune. And I like that. I do like that there is this bigger conspiracy involved now. And you're right. It's also nice to see Reacher working within a team that knows him, that knows how he operates, and knows when he's asking for a New York soundtrack, they know exactly what he fucking means, right? Love that. Yeah.
Also, just a testament to great writing. The first 5-10 minutes of the show sets up everything you need to know about Jack Reacher, right?
It reminds you exactly who he is. Yeah.
It opens with him in a thrift store looking for some clothes. Then he goes and saves this woman who's being carjacked. And you see that bit in the trailer. And those brief moments set up the character. So even if you've never seen season one, you know exactly what kind of a man this is. It's really concise. It's really great.
Yeah, it's also just a great reminder of who he is, right? You're like, oh, yes, this is who he is. He's the guy that will just punch his way through a car window.
For people who have read the book, and obviously there are a lot of Lee Child fans, for people who have read the book, I think this is a really, really clever adaptation in the sense that it stays true to the main story of the book. And there are some beats that are very, very similar. They've obviously changed some stuff for it to work on TV. But what they've done very well is introduce these flashback sequences, which weren't in the book. Because in the
Right.
book, we kind of accept that he was a part of this tight-knit group and they worked really well together and they were a fantastic team.
Right.
Very little is shown from their time in the past. There are some stories here and there in the novel, but what the TV show does really well is to show the formation of that team and how they coalesced as a team. And I think that's very important because it's not just taken for granted that he shows up and goes, yes, we were a part of this really tight knit team. One person's dead. I'm going to get revenge, you know?
I mean, I traditionally am not a fan of flashbacks, but I think in Reacher they do it well enough. I still am wondering if there's a better way to tell this story without having to go into flashbacks, but I'm okay with what they've done. I think the way it introduces everybody, introduces a different side of Reacher, right? It sort of tells you who he is that we didn't see from season one, which I appreciate as well.
We didn't see what kind of a leader he was in the army, in the military, why these people respect him as much as they do. And even though we've only seen the first 3 of 8 episodes, a lot of heavy lifting is done in those first 3 episodes. Like the mystery is solid. There's an absolutely fantastic Terminator 2 joke,
Oh, it's great.
which is great. Came out of left field, and I was like, yes, thank you very much.
Did not see that coming. I really appreciate it. I loved it. Yeah.
But most of all, it really is Alan Ritchson. He is so believable as the character. He's really lovable as the character.
Lovable is a very good word because it is so easy to make the Reacher character sort of this big bad guy, right? Like, because even Keanu Reeves with John Wick, Keanu Reeves is a lovable actor, but Wick himself is not a very lovable character.
Correct.
Here, however, Reacher is both played by a lovable actor and is a lovable character because in one of the flashbacks, right, his team constantly refer to him as Sir. He just goes, no, call me Reacher. It's the disarming and yet also laying boundaries down. He's very much just one of the guys and he wants to keep it that way while still imposing a certain level of command. Because at one point he's like, I may tell you to not call me sir, but when I ask you to do something, you hop to it. You go like, oh.
He can break you in half, but he still has that puppy dog look, which I think helps.
Yes.
I'm such a big fan of the show. And I mean, I do love the books as well. So for me, this is one of those rare examples of a TV show that really understands its source material and has adapted it in a way that the fans are going to love. Like my mom has read all of the Lee Child books.
Right.
And she absolutely loved the first season. For her, it was the books brought to life. And I think, and I hope, a lot of the fans feel the same way because for me, this is a benchmark in how you adapt something because you stay true to the spirit of it. You change the kind of stuff that doesn't necessarily work on TV, but the core character remains the same. And the stories that people loved in the books are adapted in the right way. Like I saw an interview with Alan Ritchson, and I think the interviewer said, do we know which book is being adapted for season 3.
Mm.
And Anne Richardson looks off camera and is like, well, have we announced that yet? And he goes, no, I can't say anything yet. But he says, oh, it's one of my favorite books, and it's on the top 10 of Jack Reacher fans. I think the showrunners and the writers and even the actors know that the fans love the stories in these books. And so they're not going to necessarily mess with it. Like, I liked the Jack Ryan series, but of course, it was a complete rewrite because the new Jack Ryan series was essentially taking the ideas in Tom Clancy's novels and some of the characters, but then placing them in new and modern situations. It wasn't an adaptation of Patriot Games or Clear and Present Danger like we saw in the films or The Hunt for Red October. It was all brought into the 21st century and was telling 21st century stories. So in that sense, I think Reacher does a fantastic job.
I haven't read the books. I've never read the books, but I think there is a real understanding of what makes serialized television work, especially because when you're doing a show like this, which is essentially one long arc, literally it's an 8-hour film. You can binge it. I tell you not to because that's a very bad idea. But like the mystery is the same throughout each episode, right? Each episode is moving towards answering the one big mystery.
It's an 8-hour film where at the end of every episode, Reacher has a cool one-liner to end it.
That's true. He does.
We're gonna do some cowboy shit. I'm like, oh yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. And I think that's, yeah, you have to understand the medium of television, right? You can't just do it as a one piece. You have to break it down into 8-hour long bites that serve the big 8-hour arc and not forget that. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's sticking to the books, doing what works for television and ignoring what doesn't.
Season 2, the first 3 episodes of Jack Reacher are now streaming on Prime Video. I believe 2 episodes drop every week until January. Check it out. Season 3 is already in production, so yay to that. Let us know what you thought of Season 1. Let us know what you think of Season 2. You know how to reach out, Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. If you drop us a line on any one of those channels, we'll send you a link to join our Discord server where you can chat with us in real time. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.